Shabbat Shalom from the Gush. Shabbat Shalom. It's Parshas Vayakhel, and in a typical year we read Parshas Vayakhel and Pekudei together. This year, because of the Shana Mubera, so we have the privilege of splitting the two, reading each carefully and in focus. But the big question, both about Vayakhel and about Pekudei, why? Why do we read the details, the dimensions, the specifics, again, a second time? All these details and materials and dimensions and manufacture, they're only relevant for a small, tiny portion of the population. Only the craftsmen and the artisans, the architects and the artists. For the regular rank and file, they just donated their material. 2 or 3 psukim in Truma would have been sufficient. Here's the Torah lists Truma, Tetzaveh, the labor of love. But a second time, can Vayakhel and Pekudei be synopsisized in just 1 or 2 psukim? They took all the materials, and the craftsmen, the Betzalels, the Aliyav, they all manufactured and forged the Mishkan. Why a second round? As a question which is even more relevant this year, because the second round takes 2 weeks. Normally it takes 1 week for the second round. And most of us have a hard time penetrating all the details, and those that don't have a mind for math, and why the repetition? Many answers to that question. But one answer is that Truma Tetzaveh is the planning, Truma Tetzaveh are the blueprints, Vayakhel and Pekudei is the execution. Why is the execution important? Why does the Torah have to elaborate and to portray the manufacture process rather than crunching it down just into 1 pasuk or a few psukim? The answer is because the Torah is trying to showcase a crucial balance of religious identity and religious consciousness. How do we merge creativity with religious piety? Vayakhel and Pekudei are human beings executing, expressing, self-expression. These are not just people carrying weights or performing mundane tasks. This is an epic moment of human creativity, of human imagination, of human artistic flair, of human beings taking all the traits of creativity and self-expression that Kadosh Baruch Hu delivered to us and expressing them and employing them. And it's a challenge to merge creativity with reverence, self-expression with piety and submissiveness. For example, in the world of Chassidus, the doctrine of hispatlus, of complete self-abnegation and complete self-stifling, shades towards piety because of the fear that with creativity you unleash ego, you unleash pride, you unleash distance to a degree. To be creative, you have to, for a moment, express your own identity, your own ideas, your own confidence in your ideas. And at that moment, there's a little bit of even a turning away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because if you felt HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence as vivid as you do, let's say, as Moshe felt at Har Sinai, there's no room for creativity, there's no room for self-expression, there's no room for belief in self. Hopefully that creativity is part of the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Vayakhel and Pekudei are ratifying creativity by framing it within piety. And you sense this very delicate threading of the two by the words that dominate the 2 parshios. The phrase Kasher Tziva Hashem appears, I believe, close to 25 times in Vayakhel and Pekudei. I think 24 times about the manufacture. There's 1 time about the actual kiyar and the washing of hands, Kasher Tziva Hashem, Yechatzu Mayim, Kasher Tziva Hashem. 24 times after every step, Kasher Tziva Hashem, Kasher Tziva Hashem. They weren't freelancing, they weren't self-aggrandizing, they weren't just building whatever they thought. It was very carefully calibrated to the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in the Mishkan, everything's very precise. The dimensions can't be changed. The Rambam writes, Makam Mizbech L'chuvan Meod. Yet, even though the word Kasher Tziva Hashem, or the phrase Kasher Tziva Hashem appears 24 times, the phrase Chachma, or Chachamim, or Chachma slave, about 9 or 10 times, and the phrase Melacha, Verhamelacha, about another 11 times. It's pretty even. You've got people that are wise, and of course, delivered some of this wisdom from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they're Chacham Leiv, they've developed their own wisdom, and they are creative, they're Osem Melacha, and they're trying to frame and contextualize and steer all that creativity within Kasher Tziva Hashem, within the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's crucial that the Torah ratify the two. It's crucial that the Torah create this merging between creativity and reverence. And that's a great, great challenge in life. It's a very, very hard challenge. Think about it. A lot of people in life were super creative, super expressive, super artistic. It's harder for them to be reverential. It's harder for them to be submissive. It's harder for them to accept authority. It's harder for them to work within tradition. And then on the other side, you've got traditionalists who are very submissive and very committed and very pious, and there's not that much creativity. And the challenge, Hashem delivered us creativity. Hashem made us creative. He wants us l'avdol l'shamra. I mentioned some of the words that dominate Vayakhel and Pekudei. One of the words that appears both in Vayakhel and Pekudei is the word Vayichale or Vatechel ha'avoda. And those words Vayikale ha'am mehavi in Parashat Vayakhel, Vatichla ha'avoda in Parashat Pekudei are shout-outs to Vaychul Hashemayim v'aretz. So Sefer Bereshis begins with Hashem's creation of the world. Sefer Shmos ends with human beings creating a Mishkan. Hashem wants us to be creative to enhance His world and to enhance His presence in this world. And it's a crucial, crucial moment in times I feel that the communities in Israel and the communities in America or Chutz La'aretz are taking slightly different directions on this. When I travel to Chutz La'aretz, I feel there's an ethos of conformity, there's an ethos of submissiveness, and there's almost a suspicion or a distrust about creativity. I sense it in the way people learn. There's been a recession of lamdos. People are less confident in working through a sugya, working through a rishonim, coming up with ideas the way I was trained, and then quite frankly, the masara of the great yeshivas in Europe. I feel there's a shift towards halach l'maisa, there's a shift towards daf yomi, there's a shift towards reading Sfarim that compile ideas rather than trying to develop ideas. And there are different ways to learn Torah. This is an intellectual difference, but there's a suspicion that saying something on your own or developing an idea that others haven't said before, it's faulty, it's flawed. And it's not just in Talmud Torah, it's also in life. There's an ethos of conformity, behaving similarly, finding one path, one dress, one code, one approach. And I think there's an abdication of the creative talent that HaKadosh Baruch Hu vested within us that He wants us to use to find truth and authenticity and personal relationship and personalization. And then I live in Israel, where I spend most of my time, and there's an explosion of creativity and there's an explosion of experimentation, and people feel, for whatever reason, living in Eretz Yisrael, living under the eye of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everyone's looking for their own personal formula and their authentic self and trying to find ways to fuse classic Torah and mitzvahs too. I don't know, everything from nature to yoga to psychology to postmodernism to geography. And everyone's looking for their own blend. And there's so much creativity. It suffuses our people. And I think people have a hard time with submission. People have a hard time with piety. People have a hard time with classic avodas Hashem, ke'eved lifnei Rabbo. People have a hard time with kasher tziva Hashem. So hopefully people in America will get a little more of the chachma. I don't mean America, I don't mean per se, but overseas, those who feel that creativity is suspect will realize that malacha and chachma are gifts from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they should be employed with piety and with submission. And hopefully people who are uber creative and ultra creative will be able to frame their creativity within a framework and a context of piety and commitment and submission. That's why Vayakhel and Pekudei are written, because it's ratifying but framing human creativity. Shabbat shalom, everyone.